everybody. Today I am in Belgium in one of the, maybe the oldest bonsai nursery in Europe. I'm here with Danny User.
Hello.
Hi Danny. How did you start with your nursery?
I started with my nursery in 1975, and that was immediately after I finished my school. Mm-hmm. And I was in school for garden architecture, and from there I could go one time on a trip, and I took China. And when I came back, I could start my nursery, and my parents had to sign a paper for me because you need to be 21 in that time, mm-hmm. and I was only 18 or 19, so they signed a paper that they were responsible, and I started in a piece of land with cuttings, seedlings, mm-hmm. and start to grow young plants. And they were looking more like younger garden plants, but I pruned them and I was thinking I'm producing bonsai, but it was not like that.
Yeah. Maybe it was a difficult time because I think Heidelberg is just open, Crespi in Italy was open.
And in Holland, Lodder imported his first S-shaped commercial material, mm-hmm. and there was nearly no wire available, no books. My first book was from Yoji Yoshimura, I think. Oh, yeah. That was my first bonsai book, and from there, you have to learn by books and learning by my own mistakes, mainly.
Yeah. Did you learn also by a Japanese master?
I learned in a different way. Because after a longer time, that was the time that Lodder brought Hotsumi to Europe. Actually, Lodder's daughter brought Hotsumi to Europe. And after that, we became friends together with Mark Nulanders, and we were with 3 friends. We also, all 3, bought our first bike then together. We all 3 were riding with a bike in that period. And Hotsumi came then afterwards, after a longer time, with the question, can I work in your nursery? And from there, it started from me. The Japanese techniques, I had them in front of me, and he introduced me in Japan. He was nearly the child at home in Hideo Kato's place. So that were the 3 Kato brothers were still alive then. You have Saburo Kato with Mansayen, Hideo Kato was Yagumo Mansayen, and then you have Terakichi Kato, that was Mansayen Shitien. And in a walking distance from Yagumo's place, there was Kaneko, he was an old student of the Katos also. So it was the whole influence of the Kato family that taught me many things. Also, Kaneko was the whole influence of what I'm doing still now. Kaneko stayed with me, said we're gonna stay after the setup from the Kukufu, because I was there when they were do the setup from the Kukufu, and after that he walked around with me, did the whole explanation about why the trees were there, why the selection was so like that, how they put the trees next to each other in a row, how they make the flow and everything. Mm-hmm. And I'm still, I used this afterwards to set up the Ginkgo Awards, and I'm still using this at the trophy. So it's the same way of thinking and the same spirit, what I learned there.
Is this place the first nursery you got, or do you have
No. And this is finally my final destination after a long walk. My first nursery, when I was started in '75, was actually a garden nursery that I changed it with fences and benches and put my things on. And there I was for around 10 years. And then I could start my first little shop, not so far from the nursery, because I had to sell something. I was 10 years doing some garden work and garden design to bring some money in to sponsor actually my bonsai nursery because I could not live on that. And from there I could build it out and started my first little shop, and then Ingrid came in the picture also. Then we went to a bigger nursery, and also there it was where the first Ginkgo Award took place in the second nursery. And then from there we were also, I think, about 12 or 15 years in that place, and now we are here also 22 years in that place. So we have 3 big steps to grow where we are now, and this is big enough.
Yes, I think so. But was it just a field here, or do you bought a garden nursery?
No, this was an old cactus nursery, this part. And the part next door here was completely empty. There were horses and everything. So I built a whole new greenhouse and a whole new place with the gardens there. And this was actually the old cactus nursery that I emptied completely and changed it from there. So it's like everybody, I think, if you want to make a nice bonsai display, you have to start from nothing.
Right. When came the idea to make the Ginkgo Award?
This was by a couple of friends. How comes a good idea? Normally in a bar with a couple of beers and with some good friends around you. Then good ideas probably, or bad ideas also coming. But it was after that I participate the Crespi Cup for the first time. Crespi Cup was just existing. And it was an international event, and I participated on the Crespi Cup, and I won there with a torso with a Rigida Cascade juniper. And I saw there at Crespi that this international event was not so international because I was there and Vaclav Novak was there and Hans van Meer from Holland, and for the rest it were mainly Italians that took part. So we start to talk about it should be possible to bring Europe together. But in that time, the pioneers, then we talk about Dan Barton, Piers Notter, Walter Paul, Colin Lewis, Harry Tomlinson. I'm afraid to forget some of them now of these old guys, to convince them all to come over for free and put one of their best trees together in one exhibition, Luis Vallejo. Luis was the first one to agree immediately and said, okay, I'm in. So I could use Luis' voice to say, Luis Vallejo is participating. I could go to Harry Tomlinson and I said, Harry Tomlinson is participating, and so it will growing. And I just relieved the announcement of, okay, we're going to do it, when I had them all together. Because this was the first step. Those people know each other, but never on the same event and never with a tree. They were there for a demonstration or something, but so I did a display in my nursery, and I took the first step of I have to bring them together, and if those guys all coming, the rest will follow. And it was immediately a success. It was also the best exhibition in that period. If you go in that time frame, and then we look back now, the whole evolution is started there.
But that's good.
That's good. That was also the second Ginkgo Award was already when the Sakakiokai started up in Italy, and it's still existing, and it was another branch of how you can look to bonsai. And in the meantime, some newer generations came up, Salvatore Liporace, Kevin Wilson. Then that was already the generation after. In every big country there was a god that created and from there it started in Europe, and now we have again another generation coming where I'm looking up to and said, okay, this is talented, this one is capable, this is it grows.
It grows very well. This one. After that, do you make your own school here?
Yeah.
Or was the school...
The school was already long involved. The school was there already before the first Ginkgo Award. Because the first Ginkgo Award, there was in the old nursery, there were 2 big greenhouses. And the first greenhouse was already the exhibition of the school. And the second greenhouse was then the Ginkgo Award. So mainly the international guests, they came in and they walked in, and it was the exhibition of the Kei Bonsai Kai that was already existing. And they say, oh, it's a good level. I say, no, but it's not there. You have to at the other end, we're expecting a little bit more.
So now you have also exhibitions with the club here, here at your place.
Yeah. So it's still a big club, but we have monthly our activities, and it are about 75 active people. Yeah, but there are more members, but they are some of them are just coming once or twice a year. But here we're promoting to be active, actually. So that means when we have a club reunion, everybody that comes to attend the reunion has to bring 1 tree for discussion. So that is, without tree you cannot come. This is, you don't have to pay a fee. As a membership, it's for free. The only thing you have to do is bring your tree. Without, we cannot talk about nothing, you know. It's this is one of the main rules.
So now we are here in your conifer area, as we call it. Can you tell us a little bit about these trees you selected here?
Yeah, well, like you said, the conifer area, we call it like that because here is the garden where we have protection for sun, but we don't use it here. It's all in full sun as much as possible. That's why we put our conifers here. We have also another watering strategy here for the trees, and we don't mix it actually with the deciduous because otherwise it's going to be difficult to water. And the selection of the trees, mainly it is because it are my own work for the most, except a few like this one is both in Japan. And I just maintain this now for I think about 28 years, this juniper. This is an ex-Kimura tree. In that time it was also, it was not so common because I was one of the first Europeans that were there to buy some trees, and like it was normal. So I brought this to Europe, and many others that tried to participate in the Ginkgo Awards, they were also interested in that kind of trees. But mainly the trees here are from my own work. Like this is a mugo that I have very long. And actually the story about the most of the trees, I had a bonsai business. I sold Yamadori, I had my school, and most of the trees I made for myself with the leftovers of a workshop. 80% of the trees were the trees that were not selected for a particular workshop. Like this was a Mugo Yamadori workshop, and this was the one that they didn't want it. So I started this up and I brought this tree to probably now much better than most, because it's all a matter of, it's not the first styling that make a tree. It is the commitment afterwards to bring a tree there. Like this Sylvestris is not so long in training. I think altogether maybe 6 years, 5 or 6 years after the first styling. So there are many trees that are a longer history here. Like this Sabina, for example, on rock. These 2 Sabinas, this is the work of 2 students. 2 students, one student made this, and another student make this, and then I brought these 2 students together and I said, okay, now you're gonna make a rock composition and we're gonna bring it together. So there are many things that are in the garden and will stay in the garden that I use now as material for the beginners. A beginner that starts with bonsai can have the whole story about a tree, and sometimes also all the defects that they had before we came to this one unit of a composition.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I see is there's not much wire on the trees.
This is the step that I try to promote,
Yeah.
but rewiring here, because I'm promoting the natural grown, but you cannot take it like we said, natural grown. It's not like that. Every natural grown tree had also a lot of wiring work and placing work. It's just later on the process when the branches are fixed and the branches have character and are mature that we leave this natural feeling going. And most of the trees are already in that kind of stage, you know. It should be not such a good idea to rewire and place this very sharp for the maturity of a tree. It's like you should use lime sulfur on that wood like that. It's also not done, you know. We just clean it with water and a brush. It's never, it has to be that natural approach.
But I also see it's very important for you to bring the right pot to the tree.
Yeah. Also with the school and the club, if you look now on my Facebook the last weeks and coming months even, you're gonna see a lot of their trees also with the right pot, and this is very important. I'm also looking for a pot in the right size. For me, the last thing where I think on is the color. This is the last thing that I add. The size, the shape, this is more important. A pot that is too big, bring the tree down. A pot that is too small is not looking natural, not looking stable. And also the quality of the pot. The patina, the old look is something, I take care of that,
It's an old tree, why not an old pot?
Yeah, should be like that. And this is still what I'm looking in Japan, and also I have to thank Harald Lehner for that, for his contribution in what he's doing and bringing so many old pots over from Japan while it's still possible, because the time will come that this is not possible anymore.
So now we are at the area, you call it the mid-sized trees.
Yeah, mid-size and Chuhin.
Yeah, it's a whole area.
Yeah.
Other people have a whole collection, and you have just a area for your mid-sized trees, larger trees. So what can you tell about it?
Well, this is actually now my future project, you know. I'm 65. Nearly 66, so it's time to think on another chapter in my bonsai career, the trees that I can still handle on my own. And the big trees, I think they're gonna stay where they are. I'm not gonna bring them into the turntable so often anymore. And now I'm working more intensively with this size and a little bit bigger. So this is now actually the start of a whole other collection. A collection where I was afraid of 10 years ago, because there was working with the big trees was not so detailed, not so intensive than with the smaller ones. So I need now more attention in the smaller size. It's more time consuming to bring them there, but it's so much more fun. With the experience that I had from the past, I can do this more easily. And I should say to every beginner, don't start too small with your ideas, start bigger and make them smaller, even if you have to air layer the apex finally from your tree and continue with that. I have some examples here that I just have the upper part from the tree here in my Chuhin collection. But this is my advice to everybody. Don't start too small, because this is more difficult, more refined. But with the experience that I had in the past, it's now doable to maintain.
For me, it's it's easier to build a bigger tree
Yeah, yeah.
than a smaller tree.
Yeah. Proportions are much easy to give. Bending, doing a big bending down from a big Yamadori, and you have already that more compact feeling, while you still have a tree of 1 meter and then thick branches. So you can give this image more easily. And with that, if you look into detail, the proportions has to be perfect, or it is just not.
Yes, 1 centimeter is important.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we are in the greenhouse with the Xamono, and just Xamono or also Staxa?
Yeah, I have everything. It's but I protect one with the other, and now in the summer when it's so hot, I protect the smaller ones with the bigger ones, and they are here all in between. I leave them also on the grid, and when I water, they even rooting through the holes of the pot. And so I can give more maturity, but also more protection. So everything, even aquamono, it's not with water plants and combinations. And I leave this also like it is. You see like this here. It all has to become more mature. On a regular base, I'm here with the scissor, and I thin out mainly the things. Also, this needs a lot of maintenance. Because you can make a lot of flowering plants and shrubs together, but finally it is the scissor that makes it to what it is. It is also the maturity. Your best results you start to become after 5 to 7 years. And from then, all the time before, you're just cultivating, doing things together and let it grow together. Then it's also the law of the strongest. Only the strong survive. That's really like that. So you have to take care of, and also some varieties die off in the heart of the plant, and you have to provide this from extra, without repotting, extra fertilizers, because repotting is never done here. It's once it is in the pot, I never repot, never. I let them grow over the pots. Some old beautiful pots I don't even find anymore, just I know that they are there, but it is overgrown. And some pots I remove. They did their job for 10 years, and then I let the grasses, for example, with the rhizomes growing up, and they do the job further without the pot. So this is a completely different branch of in a bonsai nursery. That also is important, because with all this material, I give humidity on my trees. When I do an outdoor display in the sun, I use a lot of grasses to help my trees and give, by the watering, good humidity. For a display, you can make in a tokonoma such a season display that I say, okay, this is the perfect season. You have more with that, without a tree even. But also in companionship with a tree, this balance, this season, it has to do something, or it's said what kind of season, or it's said where it is located instead of the tree.
It's telling a story.
It's telling a story, and this is important. This is also what we are doing here with K Bonsai Kai. We are more talking about that kind of situations. We know all our members have already some trees. They have their material, and at least 2-3 times in a year, the reunion is all about that. How you make your perfect display. What story you gonna tell with your tree? Distances, empty spaces, everything is, it's just, you take a little pot with a flowering plant and you place it in a tokonoma. The place that you took, everything around it, the empty space, that makes the whole setup. It's not the object, it's the empty space around it that create the feeling. And this is actually the selection that you make and preparing your material, and this is where it's all about. Some people has to look more to that. Look what is not there, and you will notice how beautiful this is if you do it perfect. And if you just put an object You put it there, nothing will happen. Just this feeling is something you can learn.
So now we are in another area of your nursery with the really big ones.
The big trees. For me, big trees were always important. And I saw the fashion of big trees when I started with bonsai. In Japan also, big trees were popular. Big was beautiful in that time. And then about 10 years later in Japan, it started with smaller, the smaller the better, and the big trees were reducing in price in Japan. But now if you look back, many, even in America, if you look to Rhine, for example, if you look to other Americans, if you look all over Europe actually, big is popular again.
Yes.
So somebody that start with big trees and he try to follow the fashion and he has to sell his big trees, well, it comes back, and now it's back. So, but mainly the big trees I have for a longer time. And for me, when I do an exhibition, it's always important that I make a special display around these big specimens. Like also this one is probably one of the oldest communis that survived in Europe. And I love to say it, and I also hate to say it. There is a better one in Europe. The one from Lorenzo Angioletti is much better than mine. But there are some people that can prove that communis for European people is an interesting variety. It is strong, it is for us the European Rigida. And it should be a shame that people don't work more with it, or people start to graft these varieties. Keep this special varieties still going and work with it. It's the same treatment. It's just cleaning out a lot of needles. It's very time consuming, but you'll be rewarded. You see, this is all without wire. This tree was also a longer time in the collection of Hotsumi. When Hotsumi came to work here in my nursery, he asked me, will you take over a part of my trees? This was one of my trees that I took over by Hotsumi's collection first. So I continue now for more than, it's now 28 years that I have him. I continue the same job. But this is an important variety. And I hope some people still remember that communis was a big part of the European Bonsai Society. It was more popular than Sabina in that time, and I talk 25 years ago.
Yeah. But many people have very big problems with this variety.
Because it's all about technique, and creating bonsai is one, but learning the botanical side of how far can you go, how deep can you clean it, how much strong growth, how much buds you need to keep it going, this is all important. This is just balancing. With a normal juniper chinensis or an Itoigawa, it's easy. You take the young growth away and it come again without problem, and you clean some older needles out or leaves out and it will grow. But this is different. This cleaning work is thousands and thousands of needles that you have to clean with the pincet, and when they are gone, buds are coming. And you don't prune sooner than you have a certain strongness of your tree. And this tree is now done already a couple of weeks ago, so it will be probably 6-7 weeks further before we see something that we can do something. And this is for more time consuming and also pay more attention.
So now we are in the Mediterranean area.
Mediterranean area, and some Japanese pines. That means that the watering system here is under control by. It can also become dry before watering. So this is another area. I started with Mediterranean trees about 15 years ago, and when I look back in my early days, the first olives I have, I always overwatered them. And 25 years ago, we were not talking about global warming, we were not talking about extremely temperatures, we were not talking about, so now it all comes in something new for us. Our climate is milder, is already better for that kind of trees now, but still we have to take care of winter, because winter can do in 1 week such short change, so we still have to remember where we live. Our area is still our area, but our summers are reasonably good for that kind of trees, like olives, corkbark oaks, Vaginea, name them all. They're doing it very well. And the secret is actually, there is no secret, but I use another mixture, another soil mixture, and from there we also have a different way of watering. It's not we're gonna water the bonsais, those are also bonsais, but they can wait a day longer. And also when we water an olive, the water is gone in a minute. It's a lot of pumice, more pumice than something else, but also we use sometimes Pumice bardula, Pumice acadama, and make sure that the water can disappear very fast and absorb what's necessary.
And how about the fertilizer?
Fertilizer is important, and liquid fertilizer is definitely the biggest thing that they need. If you give, we have a system that we put on our watering system, and it gives a dose of fertilizer with it. And the liquid fertilizer, they taken it immediately, and also through the pumice. Sometimes I use some lava mixture also in it, but this is the mixture that is capable to absorb and keep a little bit of the fertilizer, and they take advantage of it. And because with normal fertilizer, liquid fertilizer, and you give your normal fertilizer and then you have to give your water on top of it, all the fertilizer is gone. So for this it works more. But also I give another fertilizer. We have our own home mixture of fertilizer that we give to our trees also. This is over the years my botanical side that teaches me a lot of fertilizing correctly.
Is it more organic or more mineral?
Yeah, it's completely natural, our product. Believe me, we are not using any, so for us it's all natural product. And I saw this in Japan, how they make their own homemade fertilizer. And it's not based on the Japanese one, it's based on what we have here. And it works really well. And also I promote, give a good dose and spread it open over the roots. Don't make your fertilizer lay there somewhere compact on, because underneath there you see a big difference instead of next to it. So I'm more for, everybody had a different opinion about that, but for me fertilizer has to see the sun, have to feel the water all around. And sometimes I don't water my trees, I water my fertilizer, that he can work. And this is different.
So now we are in the area of the broadleaf trees. We see a lot of Acer palmatum. Do you buy them or do you grow it by yourself?
Both. I have Japanese ones, but the most are cultivated here in the nursery from seedlings and special varieties from air layers and some grafts. I think 80% of the maple collection is started here and finished it here in that kind of maturity. But also the 20% of old Japanese ones are here. But I have also older garden plants transformed into natural bonsai.
Absolutely amazing. How many years do you work on most of them?
Some of them I have from the beginning of my career, and that is a really long time, and that was the advantage that I had. I could not give up a tree, even how bad he was looking. Once he was in my private collection, mostly it will stay there, and if it didn't work out to make him beautiful, time will solve the problem. I have here trees that were probably more than 10 times from a bonsai pot in a wooden crate again, to start up as a new project, to look 5 years further what it has to offer me then, and restart it from there. So many trees has going that way. And then I tried it again, but I was never working with, I miss a branch there. I grafted some branches when it was necessary, but I'm working the opposite. If I have an empty space, I try to fill this up with many people when they're pruning the lower buds and the lower branches all the way that they can see. I let this for the maples, let it go his natural approach, let them drop down, fill up this gap naturally, and then we fill up a tree in a more natural, older look. So sometimes I create a classic tree with straight branches and some pads, like they want to call it. I'm completely against this, and then later on I try to give this a more dropping branch feeling.
I know this time that we built a maple like a
bonsai.
Yeah, like a bonsai, or like a pine.
Yeah.
But it looks
No, it are maples, and maples has even I make it different in the weeping variety maples and the fast growing maples, also trident maples I give a different approach, but also the dwarf varieties like Shishigashira, and also I give a more natural look on a different way. I have here a Shishigashira, I never touch it with a wire, never. And they all have all the same feeling. They have to look like a natural tree, but I don't want to give them the look like a typical bonsai. It has to look just a little bit more. It has to look older. Also with the Nyabari, and I'm completely okay. I have beautiful Nyabaris, I have perfect Nyabaris, but those are not the trees that I liked most. I like this little bit imperfection in a tree. This is for me the most beautiful tree. He's just not perfect. And that makes him so beautiful. When he's too perfect, it's not real.
Yeah.
But here there is behind me there is a Carpinus, European Carpinus also, and this comes from a garden plant. This Carpinus was standing here all the time in the garden, so I dug this up about 20 years ago, start to carve the trunk hollow, and now it are just two thick live veins that make this old Carpinus look. Everybody should go more into where are the old trees, where is this variety, where can I find this variety. You have, for example, in France you have some things, and for people that drinking champagne and like to drink champagne, you go to that area from here it's 3 hours drive. And there is a whole forest of Carpinus and a whole natural look. Go for where are the old trees and try to get your inspiration there, and look one step further. Always go and look to the oldest trees. There are many beautiful trees that were nearly dead, that make themselves into a completely different tree. Like everybody grows a ginkgo, formal, upright, with the branches upright. I had a ginkgo, I sold them to one of my students that was far over that step. The tree was rotten, completely hollow, and it was just a few veins that make this special ginkgo. Those are the trees I really promote. And everybody, even if you make a mistake in carving, and it is a mistake, it's no problem. Leave this mistake the time that it needs, even if you have to fill up the carving work with sphagnum moss and let it rotten faster, fine. But time is your best friend ever.
Yeah.
Or if you don't have patience enough, it's your worst enemy. But normally it should be your best friend. And also take care of time, because he finishes your job easily.
This is a very nice final word from you. Danny, many thanks that we
My pleasure.
stay here today at your place. It was absolutely fantastic here.
Yeah.
And thank you well.
Please come back. I can tell you so much more stories.
Thank you.